This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate is the world's biggest coffee lover because we love all the ways you enjoy. Wait. Coffee Mate can't love coffee more than me. I'm a foodie. I went to Kyoto just for a nitro matcha latte. What? Oh, I have to finish the ad. Coffee Mate, for the love of coffee.
This is what you do when you've just found that statement handbag on eBay and you want to build an entire wardrobe around it. You start selling to keep buying. Yep, on eBay. Over that all-black everything phase, list it and buy all the color. Feeling more vintage than ever? It's out with the new and in with the pre-loved. Next thing you know, you've refreshed your wardrobe basically without spending a dime. Yeah, eBay, the place to buy and sell new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion.
There are toys, and then there are freak-out-worthy toys. Toys that get big reactions like,
OMG, no way!
Or,
best present ever!
Or,
it's what I've always wanted.
For those toys, you need Walmart. They've got exclusives from major brands like Disney, Barbie, and Adventure Force that you can't find anywhere else. Toys that make kids jump for joy.
Thank you!
And make you a hero for giving them. Shop hundreds of exclusive toys.
Yes!
Welcome to your Walmart.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to There Can Only Be One, the podcast that puts together the all-star best of playlists of your favorite bands and artists, and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. There are certain bands that kind of define certain eras for people. And I remember growing up, there were certain albums I listened to a ton. A few of those albums were all by the same artist, and that is Pink Floyd. And here to join me to go down the Floyd road, none other than Sean Faust, back on the show. Sean, how are you doing, man?
Thank you very much indeed. It's about time, right?
I know, it's been way too long.
I think Pink Floyd was the first band I threw in your direction, and then somehow Dream Theater came along. And then we were talking about Madonna one day, and it was like, oh yeah, Madonna. Actually, I think we talked about Madonna on the Dream Theater episode, behind the scenes, folks. We talk because we actually get along. So we have conversations after and before we record. And Madonna came up, then Tesla came up, and then Bon Jovi. And now, my favorite band of all time, Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd, Pink Floyd. Yes.
Now, you, Mr. Faust.
Yes, that's me.
Are the ongoing record holder for longest playlist made on this show with your, and if I remember, I think it was 3 hours long playlist for Dream Theater, which at some point when that new album comes out, we're going to have to go back and revisit that episode. But
we sure are.
But Pink Floyd, there's a lot of albums and there's a few long songs in this list. So
I didn't notice.
Just a few, right? Prediction. And I'm going to have to post this out when we release the episode. But prediction, what is the over-under on the length of your playlist? I'm putting the over-under for you at about an hour 45. Over or under?
Over.
How did I know?
Well, I'm sure you can definitely guess one from one of the albums.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
Just a bit. But we're going to make it easy for all of you dear listeners because we're about to go through 15 albums from the Pink Floyd discography. Now, just to make it simple, because there's been a few releases, we're just going to do the studio albums. We're not going to touch the box sets, any EPs, or any live albums. So just the main 15 studio releases. Because there's a few. There's a few out there. And if we wanted to get into the weeds, we can get into the weeds. But I think 15 is a nice, happy number for everybody here.
They did release a remix of A Momentary Lapse of Reason in 2019. Would that count? And we make it 16 because it is a studio album just remixed.
I'm going to keep it at the 15. We're going to go with the original Momentary Lapse of Reason.
Good.
But before we get to that one, we have to go all the way back to 1967 and the release of The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, released August 4th of that year. The band at this point is Syd Barrett, Roger Waters, Nick Mason, and Richard Wright. The album hit number 6 on the UK charts and number 131 on the Billboard 200 and is gold in the UK. There was only one single off this album, Flaming, which did not chart. So here we go. Off The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Sean, start us off. What's on your list?
It's how we started off with Astronomy Domini. To this day, I'd say this is a top 5, top 10 Pink Floyd song for me. Astronomy Domini. Now, can I cross my fingers and hope that we have a match here? Or are you going with one of the other awesome songs on this great album?
I am going with one of the other awesome songs on this album. And I think part of the problem is that whenever I hear Astronomy Domini, I hear Voivod's cover of that song, right? Well, I'm kind of Canadian, so that does happen. And that video got played a ton on Much Music, and justly so. It was a fantastic cover. But
same here. I love that cover.
Oh, absolutely.
Love it.
But the problem is, for me, and I'll be very blunt right off the bat, a lot of these albums, the early years, I maybe knew one song or none of them. So until we get to Dark Side of the Moon, a lot of this was a listen of discovery for me. And I wasn't expecting some of the stuff on this. So yes, Astronomy Domini was on my short list, as was The Gnome and Bike.
Yes.
Because that one's just fun. Lucifer Sam is my pick off of this one. And I this was just fun. Like, it feels like a 60s spy movie guitar riff. And
it is.
Yeah. And kind of a reverby surf style bridge. And if you like surf guitar, this is a fantastic. I would love to hear a surf band bring in a guest vocalist and do a cover of this song. That would be fantastic.
Ooh. That cat's something I can't explain.
Like, how is this? And by the way, I have not finished watching the entire series, season 1 of Exploding Kittens. But if this song is not somewhere in that that series, massive missed opportunity, because Tom Ellis is the voice of Godcat. And if Lucifer Sam is in that series, I'm sorry that they broke it and they have to go back and redo it.
I don't know. I cannot tell you either way.
Also, how was this song not in the musical episode of Lucifer? By the way, if you're a Lucifer fan, there is a musical episode in season 5 called Bloody Celestial Karaoke Jam. Fantastic episode. This song not in it.
With Amex Platinum, you can really be in the now. Access to Resi Priority Notify. Yes. 4 p.m. checkout with fine hotels and resorts booked through Amex Travel.
We needed this.
And dedicated card member entrances at select events.
Let's go!
Means you can focus on the present moment. That's the powerful backing of American Express. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/withAmex. Card member entrance access not limited to Amex Platinum Card.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Have you ever thought about something new you'd love to learn? As adults, it's easy to get caught up in the daily grind, and sometimes we forget to make time for new experiences. Remember when we were kids and learning was part of everyday life? Now it feels like we're always in work mode. But what if we could tap into that curiosity again? Whether it's learning how to garden, picking up a new language, or finally beating your friend in your fantasy football league, there's so much out there to explore. Therapy can help you reconnect with that childlike sense of wonder. I know for me, therapy has been a great way to learn about myself, set healthy boundaries, and develop positive habits. It's not just for times of crisis. It's about growing and becoming the best version of yourself. I know I am more in tune with both my positive self, which I highlight, and my negative self, which I'm working to minimize since I began working with my BetterHelp therapist. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, BetterHelp is a great option. It's fully online, so it's convenient, and it fits around your schedule. You'll fill out a quick questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch at any time with no extra charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Pantheon today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/Pantheon.
This is what you do when you've just found that statement handbag on eBay and you want to build an entire wardrobe around it. You start selling to keep buying. Yep, on eBay. Over that all-black everything phase, list it and buy all the color. Feeling more vintage than ever? It's out with the new and in with the pre-loved. Next thing you know, you've refreshed your wardrobe basically without spending a dime. Yeah, eBay, the place to buy and sell new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion.
We now move on to A Saucerful of Secrets, released June 28th, 1968. We have a member addition at this point. The one and only David Gilmour has now joined the band on guitar. The album hit number 9 on the UK charts, number 10 in France, and number 158 in the US, and is gold in the UK. There was one single that did not chart off this, Let There Be More Light, which was on my short list, but not my pick. But Sean, Saucerful of Secrets, what did you go with?
I went with one that utilizes an instrument that is very underutilized. Paul Williams utilizes it in a lot of the songs from Emmett Otter. Myself, I played one on stage with Saigon Kick and a group of other people on the song My Life a few years ago. It's just, when I hear a solo using this instrument, I'm like, yes, I need more of this. I went with Corporal Clegg. Give me a kazoo solo any day. Plus, the song in and of itself is like, lyrically, it's where Waters is going to go in 10 years. And just, it's got such a driving boom, bow, bow, awesome stuff.
I would be lying if I said that I did not use a kazoo live in my own show, which is now how you will always hear Billie Eilish's Bad Guy. I'm not sorry at all. Kazoo and Bad Guy, you're welcome. When you were talking about an instrument that doesn't get used a lot kind of thing, I'm like, oh, please tell me he's going to say the vibraphone and set the controls for the Heart of the Sun, but you didn't.
No, I did not.
So I'm going to say my pick is Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, partly because of the vibraphone, but mostly because of the tribal groove and the bass lead line in this. And I mean, again, I wasn't expecting the album to be this good. Because again, it's not Dark Side of the Moon, it's not The Wall. This is all discovery for me. I really enjoyed this one.
It's a great album.
We now move on to More, which was actually the soundtrack for the film with the same name, directed by Barbette Schroeder. Released June 13th, 1969. We have a member change now, Sid Barrett no longer in the band. The album hit number 9 in the UK, number 2 in France, and number 153 in the US, and is gold in France. There was one single off of this one, The Nile Song, did not chart. So off of More, what did you go with?
The first time I heard this album, I didn't get it. I wanted to return it. I was just bummed. And as I'm listening to it, The Nile Song comes on. And then the second half, there's the reprise of The Nile Song. I forgot what it's called at this moment, and I feel like such a terrible Floyd fan for it. My apologies, folks. Please don't send me letters. I love The Nile Song, but my choice is Cymbeline. It is anthemic before anthemic rock existed. Cymbeline. It's high time.
We actually have our first match. That is my pick as well. I didn't think I would ever be able to call a Pink Floyd song pretty, but this one actually is kind of a pretty song.
This album is full of pretty songs, which is why it just threw me for a loop when I first heard it, because at that time, I had The Wall, The Final Cut, and Piper, which Piper threw me for a loop right out of the gate. But then Bike, I was like, man, this is silly. I love this. And I got More, and I was like, what the hell is going on? But Green is the Color is a gorgeous tune, and it's also very pretty, as one would say. But yeah, dude. So was this your first time hearing the album More?
Oh, absolutely. Like, this
Beautiful
was all
album.
brand spanking new to me here. Cirrus Minor and Ibiza Bar were on my short list. But yet, Cymbeline, like, I don't know where I now need to go watch the movie More just to be able to get a feel for the album. And that's the thing. Dear listeners, I'm sure if you have listened to Pink Floyd, and you probably have, because you really can't avoid it on classic rock radio, but how many of you have seen the movie The Wall? And the minute you hear some of those songs, you have visions or images from the movie that pop up in your head. I want to now go see more and start to put two and two together and see the music as it's meant to be in the film. Because I'm sure if like you listen to the soundtrack, you listen to this album and you've never seen the film at all, you know, kind of like me, the songs are going to feel a little out of place. I'd love to see them in usage.
I think I own the movie. I think it came in the box set, the early years box set. The Valley did, which I guess we'll talk about in a while. But The Valley is definitely in there. I don't recall if more is in there, but I can tell you, this is a top 5 Floyd album for me. And I've never seen the movie.
So since we have a quote unquote bad movie podcast, I had to take a quick look to see if more actually qualified for It's Not That Bad. You know, because that's what I do. I hear movie, I think movie, I all of a sudden have to look up the critics score because that's how broken I am. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. We cannot talk about more on that show because while there is no official tomatometer for the film, the audience score sits at 69%. So it's too good for that podcast. So unfortunately, we can't talk about it there, but maybe somewhere down the road, we'll get a chance to talk about it somehow, some way. We now move on to November 7th, 1969, and the release of Ummagumma. The album hit number 5 in the UK and Netherlands and number 74 in the US. It is platinum in the US, gold in UK, Germany, and France. So, John, I know there's one song here that everyone knows, or at least they know the title of. I'm curious if it's your pick.
Disc 1, Astronomy Domini, tuned down to D, does not count because it's live, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well then, come back. It is several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grooving with a peak. Because, a couple reasons. One, it's probably the only one I can get through, and no offense to the other guys, but like it's just where more is a top 5 album for me. This is probably the bottom of the barrel. This is number 15. If I were to rank the albums, this would be number 15, which is a shame because the live disc is amazing. But Several Species, it's also the first song off this album I heard on the Works compilation. The other thing is that when Echoes, which was a band I played with, we played Echoes by Pink Floyd. When we were rehearsing and Diener and Bill were doing the middle section wee 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 thing, Guy Heller, performer extraordinaire, he's just hanging out in the room and he's just started doing Several Species over the middle section of Echoes. I was like, oh God, dude, please do that at the shows. And he didn't. But it was so awesome that it's why this song is just very like, it gives it more personality for me.
Yeah. It probably goes down as one of the greatest / worst song titles in the history of song titles ever.
Mm-hmm.
Right up there with Catherine Wheel's Eat My Dust, You Insensitive. But not my pick. I ended up going with Grantchester Meadows. So,
Okay.
and another song kind of in the vein of Cymbeline. It's peaceful, it's light, it's airy. And I think the birds in the background are kind of like a nice touch to it. You know, it has that, you know, feel like it was recorded outdoors. I don't know if the duck or goose were needed because there's a duck or a goose that makes noise somewhere in the middle of the song. Maybe they did record it outside. I don't know. But it is actually quite a nice song. And as I'm listening to this, because of course, again, my frame of reference for Pink Floyd usually sits around, you know, The Wall and the final cut. This is really, really peaceful and serene type of music that I wasn't necessarily expecting in some of these earlier, more avant-garde years.
Avant-garde is a very polite way of putting it. Well, the other thing about this album was everybody wrote their own song. There was no collaboration between any of the members for each of the songs. So Gilmour on The Narrow Way played everything on that track.
Okay, so he pulled the Wolfgang and he pulled the Matthew Suite.
Well, it's not the last time that Gilmour would do that. in 1984 when they or 82 or 81. I think it was 81 now I think about it, when they released a collection of great dance songs. That version of Money is actually a complete re-recording, and Gilmour played everything on it.
And you wonder why they eventually basically became David Gilmour's band after a while.
Fair enough.
October 2nd, 1970 was the release of Atom Heart Mother. Hit number 1 in the UK and number 55 in the US. It is gold in the US, UK, France, Germany, and Switzerland. So I was surprised at how really good this album was.
Definitely. Absolutely. And it's another one of those things like where you're younger, if you only know The Wall and you only know Dark Side or Wish You Were Here, and you pop on Atom Heart Mother, you're in for culture shock. Because that whole that kind of leads you into the album. And this is a near perfect album. I could deal with that Alan Psychedelic Breakfast, I'll be honest with you. But it's a near perfect album. Obviously, you know the one song I did not pick from it, but it's unique.
Well, seeing as how there is a song on here that is 23 minutes and 44 seconds long, I'm going to assume that that is in the running for your pick.
Oddly enough, this is an incorrect assumption, my friend. As much as I love the track, and as much as I love the 2-5 jam that reminds me a lot of YEM by Fish, I did not go with the title track. I went with something a little more upbeat, and I went with Summer 68. I love that chorus. I love that piano intro. I love that song.
So 1 year before Bryan Adams, apparently.
Yes. Why did you... Oh, I forgot you're Canadian. Of course, you got to mention your hero, Bryan Adams.
I'm just saying, like, if ever there was a cover band out there that would do Summer of 68 and then Summer of 69 in a row.
Oh, you son of a bitch. Now I've got to do it.
Yeah. Called you out. Gonna happen.
No.
Summer of 68 was on my short list, as was Atom Heart Mother. But
wait. The song is just Summer 68. There's no of. So it's not Bryan Adams related. So, null and void, and I don't have to do that. Thank you.
See, now the thing is, I'm going to see this title. I'm going to say Summer of 68 because that's the Canadian in me. I'm going to Canadian all over that one. And I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. I ended up going with If. And to me, and again, if your frame of reference is The Wall, like it was for me, this has a very Goodbye Cruel World vibe to it off of that album. It kind of stuck with me.
I can totally see that. It's that finger picking beauty.
Which, if you take a look, like Cymbeline, Grantchester Meadows, and If, that's kind of a nice serene kind of set list right there. 1, 2, 3 punch.
Also sounds like a Pink Floyd set list to me as well, because it's nice and mellow. I'm just going for the mellow, serene side, not even like the fact that it is Pink Floyd, just the fact that the feel of each of these songs is just like, yep, pack your bowls, spark your dubs.
We now move on to November 5th, 1971, and the release of Metal. Hit number 3 in the UK, number 2 in the Netherlands, and number 70 in the US. It is double platinum in the States, gold in the UK and Germany, and 2 times gold in France. One of These Days was released as a single, but did not chart. However, it did make my list. Because as I'm listening to this, I was familiar with this song because I've listened to Pulse live. And that's a fantastic live album. But when you have a pulsing bass with them through the whole thing, the Doppler effect that's kind of on the middle part of the guitar too. And then, of course, like the one line of vocals that one of these days I'm going to cut you to pieces. This song is fantastic for a near instrumental.
I'm sorry that I need to correct you, but it's my OCD. It's one of these days I'm going to cut you into little pieces.
Well, see, maybe I should write the whole damn lyric in my notes.
Well, maybe it's just, you picked this song because it's shorter than the song I'm picking.
Quite possible. Well, I mean, you did pick the over, so I'm now curious if we're going to hit it, because you did pass on a 23-minute, 44-second song from the last album. So off of Metal, what did you go with?
I went with my favorite Pink Floyd song. I went with Echoes. Because Echoes.
At 23 minutes and 30 seconds, we're back on track to hitting the over off of this one. But again, it's one of those things where like Atom Heart Mother and metal, like imagine going from Ummagumma to this. Imagine if Ummagumma was the first Pink Floyd album you ever listened to. And then these come
I never
out.
would have listened to any other Pink Floyd album ever again.
I wonder, what if there's someone out there whose first and only ever Pink Floyd listen was Ummagumma?
Well, then again, no, we got to keep in mind, for this show, we only do the studio disc. So there's still that live disc that's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 50% great album.
And then 50% animal noises.
Ummagumma, yeah, you know. Come back. Come back.
Obscured by Clouds, released June 2nd, 1972. This was recorded as a soundtrack for the film La Vallée. Hit number 6 in the UK, number 3 in Netherlands and Denmark, and number 46 in the US. It is gold in the US and silver in the UK. Free 4 was released as a single. It hit number 29 in the Netherlands and number 36 in France. So off of this soundtrack, what did you go with?
I went with What's the Deal. Free 4 was on my short list. It's one of my favorite songs to cover. But What's the Deal just has that beautiful Richard Wright piano that is just that those piano solos and just the piano playing throughout the entire song is gorgeous. 100% gorgeous. Plus, the song is just so catchy. There's also there's kind of a CSN&Y vibe about the melodies too, which is weird because years later I saw David Crosby and Stephen Stills at Radio City Music Hall with David Gilmour, and they sang backups on a bunch of tunes, and I can't remember if What's the Deal was on it. What's the Deal, I'm sorry. But I can just pretend in my memory, maybe.
First of all, before I drop my pick, I need to point out that this film does qualify for It's Not That Bad with a 40% tomatometer and a 59% audience score. So maybe somewhere down the road we tackle this one, but
I own it.
We have, well, okay, you know what we have to do. You know.
Well, as long as it's not the GoBots movie, I'm good.
Oh, man. When somewhere along the way, someone's going to sit there and say, yeah, I'll take up that GoBots mantle.
They could also go with the crashing through the sky comes that fearful cry, Cobra.
I'm not going to mess up my voice too bad because I'm still coming off of being sick, so I'm going to save the listeners before I...
Cobra!
There we go. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
I had the gold. It's on my short list, but Childhood's End is my pick off of this one. This one felt the most Floyd to me off of this album. And that's the thing too. When you're doing a soundtrack, you're doing it for the film, but this one still felt like a traditional Floyd track.
I can hear that.
We now get to a little album, The Dark Side of the Moon.
Which one is that? Is that the one? That's the one with the guy on fire shaking hands with the other guy in the alley with the pig?
No. That's the one with the all white and black kind of lines on it.
Oh.
No.
With the beds.
Yes. No.
With the beds and the faces facing each other on the beach.
Yeah, no. This is the one with the triangle with the pretty lights on it.
It's a prism. I just caught what you're doing. My bad. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Released March 1st, 1973. This album is currently the 4th best-selling album of all time, behind only Thriller, Back in Black from AC/DC, and the Bodyguard soundtrack. It hit number 1 in Austria, Canada, Italy, in the US, but only hit number 2 in the UK. Strap in, because there were some sales here. 15 times platinum in the UK, 14 times platinum in Australia, triple platinum in Germany, quadruple platinum in Austria. It is double diamond in Canada. It is diamond in the US. That's 15 times platinum, y'all, and 19 times platinum in New Zealand and platinum in France. There were 2 singles off of this one. Money charted the highest, hitting number 13 in the US and number 6 in France. And in 1999, the album was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. So this is where Pink Floyd starts really feeling like Pink Floyd to me because, well, it's freaking Pink Floyd, but this is also arguably one of the biggest albums in the history of music around the world. So, off this one album, what did you go with?
I want to tell you something funny about this album. This album was done and recorded, and they were mixing it when they got hired to score The Valley. Obscured by Clouds was written after this album was already recorded and performed a few times. That being said, Us and Them.
Us and Them is a fantastic track. Absolutely. I had that, Breathe, and Money in my short list. But I'm going to go with Time as my pick. And perhaps there's a recency bias to this because I was fortunate enough to be able to go see the Vibes tour by Godsmack recently. They opened their set with Time, and they do a fantastic cover of this song. But to this day, like this is one of those iconic Pink Floyd songs.
Well, it's one of these iconic Pink Floyd albums. I mean, I chose Us and Them because it's just beautiful. It's just serene. It's sad. It's haunting. If you're paying attention to the lyrics, you're like, oh God, this is a bad place. The entire album is timeless. It's classic. And well, actually, it's not timeless.
It's a triangle, not a prism. No, just kidding.
Right, correct. No,
I will say
the
though, by the way,
lines.
if you are the kind of person to look at the lyrics and really delve into them, this album's great. This song is fantastic when you're young. Don't be reading the lyrics when you're older, because
oh my God, it's like watching Stand By Me when you're a kid, and you're like, wow, fun adventure movie, and the kids curse, and like my parents let me watch this, and then you watch it as an adult, and you're like, oh my God, this is such a sad movie.
Yeah, this song, the lyrics hit so much differently. Like the first time I heard this album, I'm like, oh, it's a great song, it's fantastic. You know, the alarm clocks are going off, and that's really cool, and the groove is great. And then you know, now I'm my age. I'm reading the lyrics. I'm just like, I have wasted everything. I have missed so much.
Well, because one day you find 10 years have got behind you.
Every year is getting shorter, never seem to find the time. Plans that either come to naught or half a page of scribbled lines.
Hanging on in quiet desperation. That's the human way.
Time is gone. Song's over. Thought I had something more to say. And now I'm going to go and cry in a corner.
Go watch Stand By Me.
Wish You Were Here. Released September 12, 1975. The album hit number 1 in Australia, Finland, the Netherlands, Italy, New Zealand, Spain, the UK, and the US. It is double platinum in the UK, 7 times platinum in Australia, double platinum in Germany, Austria, triple platinum in Canada, 6 times platinum in the US, 4 times platinum in New Zealand, and diamond in France. Have a Cigar was released as a single and hit number 15 in France. At the 1976 Junos, this was nominated for Best Selling International Album of the Year, lost to Elton John's Greatest Hits. But, you know, it's Elton John in 1975, so the Junos, we'll let that go by here. So off of Wish You Were Here, and it's not a long song list, but what did you go with?
I went with one that people hardly ever talk about, and that's Shine On You Crazy Diamond, parts 6 through 9. Now, normally, the Sean that I am, that you know, would have been like, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, all of it. But because it's split up, I got to go. 6 through 9 has more of that groove. It's just like boom, boom. And it kind of brings you into it. It's that boom, boom on a G instead of a B, like as One of These Days. But then it just brings you into this really like dark ambient jam that's kind of like, I'm going to space and like I feel like the ship's gonna crash. And but then it goes to this beautiful part, and then it goes to this other jam that and it just then you get this other really dark, haunting synth solo, and then the song resolves on a G major chord, and it's so pretty. And then the album's over.
Well, I'm going to start from the other end. My pick is actually Shine On You Crazy Diamond parts 1 to 5. Mainly because I love the slow build on this. Like the light, very ethereal keyboard solo part of it. the echoey guitar solo notes. Like, this song builds up well, and then you don't even get your first vocal until, like, was it like 9 minutes in?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. But for 9 minutes of sparse space building, almost world building song-wise, nary a lyric, and it doesn't need it, and it's brilliant.
You got those 4 notes that just say everything. You know, when you hear those 4 notes, you're like, about to go on a journey.
Right.
We're approaching liftoff.
Proof that you don't need to hit every note as a guitarist. All you need is to let those notes just do the work for you. 1977 saw the release of Animals, released January 21st of that year. The album hit number 1 in Netherlands, Germany, Italy, New Zealand, and Spain. Only number 2 in the UK and number 3 in the US. It is 4 times platinum in the States, double platinum in Canada, and platinum in the UK, Germany, and France. So off of Animals, a bit of a change of pace from which you were here. Your pick.
I went with the angriest, most visceral song on the album that starts off all fluffy. And I went with Sheep. Sheep is pure anger. And I love every second of it.
And yes, dear listeners, for the record, every song on this album is basically named after an animal. So I ended up going with one of the earlier animals mentioned. I ended up going with pigs, 3 different ones. So I had to be very careful here because there's pigs on the wing, there's pigs 3 different ones, and there's pigs on the wing part 2, as well as dogs and sheep. No, I ended up going with pigs, 3 different ones. And I think the thing for me here is that it kind of feels very Mother-esque from The Wall, and love the rhythm in the end. Like the fact that it picks up at the end, it's always like I was into it, and then that came in. It's like, ooh, and I like the way this is kind of going out. But clearly a thematic record. I was kind of expecting a little bit of George Orwell references, but not there.
No, that comes later.
We now move on to another small album, no triangle on the front. The Wall, released November 30th, 1979, hit number 1 almost everywhere. It only hit number 3 in the UK. This album is also on the list of best-selling albums of all time, but it is the number 1 best-selling double album of all time. It is double diamond in the US. That is 23 times platinum. 14 times platinum in New Zealand, 11 times platinum in Australia, diamond in France, double diamond in Canada, triple platinum in the UK, 7 times platinum in Germany, and that's just for starters. Like that's just a small section of the world here. 3 singles off of this one. Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 hit number 1 in multiple countries, including the UK and the US. At the 1981 Grammys, it was nominated for Album of the Year, lost to the self-titled album by Christopher Cross. It was also nominated for Best Rock Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal, lost to Against the Wind by Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. It was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2008, but at the 1981 Junos, it's Canadian, but it counts, won International Album of the Year, and Another Brick in the Wall won for Best International Single of the Year. You damn right, Junos. So off of The Wall, before I get into this and into our picks, because I know you like a concept album.
I've been known to listen to a few in my life.
Just a few. In the pantheon of concept albums, is The Wall a top 3 concept album?
Well, yes. Yes, it is. Number 1 for me is Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche.
As it should be.
Is Scenes from a Memory by Dream Theater. Number 3 is The Wall, and number 4 would be Tommy, but I had to really think about that. Tommy by The Who, my father gave that to me. My introduction to Pink Floyd is through this movie. This kid that lived across the street from me when I was like 10 or something like that. It was like, I was at the video store renting a movie, and he's like, oh, check this out. This is pretty cool. And for years, I always had the "Hey teacher, leave those kids alone" like thing in my head, but I never knew who it was or what. I'm 10 years old. What the hell do I know? So halfway through the movie, my parents are like, "You can't watch this." Understandably, like at 10, I had no idea what was happening during "Don't Leave Me Now." Now I do. So my father finished it, and he's like, "No, you can watch it. Like you don't know what's going on in this, so it's fine." And I got the album, but I returned the videotape, and my father's like, "So you liked The Wall? Like it's called a rock opera," and he played Tommy for me, and I was like, "Wow!" So because of Pink Floyd, I got turned on to Tommy. That's short story long. That's why it was such a tough call on that one.
But then we get to the songs, and this one's gonna be tough for me because I love watching concert videos, like the concert, the DVDs, or going back in the day, the VHS releases of those. But I remember watching the broadcast of the Roger Waters The Wall live in Berlin concert, and that was one of the most pivotal live concert performance moments that I ever got to witness on TV. Like it was that and the Freddie Mercury tribute concert. Like those are
God.
Yes.
Oh, that's gotta be. I think Extremes medley is probably my favorite live performance of anything ever anywhere.
Yes.
But
and
yeah,
yes.
that entire show. The only thing that annoyed me while that was being broadcast is nobody mentioned that the other guitar player playing with Queen is Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath.
Right.
It was just like, oh, there's this other guy. Like, no, it's not some other guy. But yeah, oh my God. What a concert. But yes, the Wall live in Berlin, do you know why that happened?
Because of the
Pink
fall.
Floyd only did a limited number of shows for the Wall tour because the production was just too expensive. It was too big to do at the time. So somebody in 82 or 83 asked Waters, like, when are you going to do the Wall again? He's like, when the Berlin Wall comes down, just being facetious. He had no idea that it was going to happen. And then the Wall comes down and he's probably sitting in his room like, oh, bug on me, and just done. But what a concert that was.
Oh, yeah. If you have not had a chance to watch that entire concert, dear listeners, find a copy of it because it is one of the greatest concert productions of all time. And then the Scorpions are there. And yeah, Bryan Adams is there. You got Cyndi Lauper. You got Van Morrison. Like, this was a fantastic live performance of this album. And that is like almost like core memory for me watching that concert. But now we get to our pick. The Wall, double disc. What did you go with?
I'm a film score dude. And you mentioned Berlin, and the first thing I did was I grabbed my lapels like this, like Albert Finney as the judge. It's The Trial, man. It's totally The Trial. I mean, Comfortably Numb, like, yes, of course, like, it's the greatest guitar solo ever. But my preference of Comfortably Numb is the live version from Delicate Sound of Thunder, which we're not touching upon. But if I'm just looking at this album objectively, yeah, there's tons of great guitar solos. There's tons of great songwriting, a lot of chunky stuff. But this one is just, it's like a 5-minute play.
This is where you can really play with like storytelling and songwriting. And at that concert too, of course, they had different people playing the different parts of the song. So that was really cool. And I figured you were going to go with that. I'm looking at the song list going, that's Sean's pick. It's going to be The Trial. Has to be The Trial.
It's The Trial.
I had Comfortably Numb on my short list because I get to actually play that live and it's fantastic. I also had In the Flesh ? So the opening In the Flesh. That one really was sold to me again by the Scorpions performing that, like the first number from that Live in Berlin concert. And of course I had Young Lust there as well, but I'm going to go with Hey You. This is one of those ones where it's the quintessential Floyd song. It is, but between the solos and the vocals too, like this is between both David Gilmour and Roger Waters on this track. Like, it is fantastic.
Hey You was on my short list. Comfortably Numb, of course, was on my short list. But when I put some thought into it, it was The Trial. But Hey You, I remember it was a big deal when Pink Floyd came around for the Division Bell tour in '94. And the first leg of the tour, they weren't doing all of Dark Side of the Moon. It was more of a collection of songs, which I preferred, to be honest. But everybody was like, oh my God, yes, because they opened with Astronomy. But the first encore, before Comfortably Numb and Run Like Hell, was, actually, I think it was after Comfortably Numb. The first encore, though, was Hey You. And Guy Pratt sings the Roger Waters part. And I don't know if I've mentioned it on this show or not, but Guy Pratt's my favorite bass player, and that guy can sing. And Hey You Live is extraordinary, just as extraordinary as it is on the album.
This is definitely one of those concert regrets that I never got to see Pink Floyd live. That would have been fantastic.
It was. Not to rub it in, I'm just saying it was. I saw them a month later do all of Dark Side, and while I liked that, I liked more variety.
I can see that. I can definitely. It's kind of like when I went to go see Dream Theater do The Astonishing live, and I wish I could hear other songs. The Final Cut, released March 21st, 1983. We have a member change at this point. Richard Wright is out of the band. The album hit number 1 in France, Italy, Germany, New Zealand, Norway, Sweden, and the UK, but only hit number 6 in the US. It is double platinum in the US and platinum in Australia. There was one single off this one, Not Now John, hit number 5 in France and number 7 on the US mainstream rock charts. This is actually one of my favorite Pink Floyd albums as a whole. And again, it's got the storytelling. It's basically a concept album unto itself. Final Cut, like if you're ranking your top 3 Floyd albums, where does this one sit?
This is a top 5. I'd probably put this in number 4. Maybe 4 or 5. This is a top 5 for me as well, though. I'm with you. Like, it's just, it gets a lot of crap. It's unfairly maligned. Well, let's just say it's on a lot. The radio edit, the radio version of Not Now John didn't really do it any favors because, stuff all that, and then the stuff all that didn't really help. Great guitar solo for me. Actually, this has some of Gilmour's best solos, is this album. But yeah, I mean, it's unfairly maligned, but man, what a beautiful record from start to finish. And also not Nick Mason on Two Sons in the Sunset. He was fired because Waters just hated the way he was playing. He's credited on the album, but I think he was out of the band, and I can't remember who the drummer is on Two Sons.
Which is a shame because this, of course, is the end of that era of Pink Floyd.
Yes.
But off of this album, what's your pick?
I went with the title track, The Final Cut. A lot of people like to make fun of Waters' higher range vocals, but I think it just brings the emotion across more. And that solo is so beautiful. Like I said, there's a lot of great Gilmour solos on this album and just great overall guitar tone on the album. But the Final Cut just really it sucks me in every time I hear it.
I will say that on my short list was The Gunner's Dream and Paranoid Eyes.
Oh, another gorgeous one.
But my pick off of this is actually The Fletcher Memorial Home. This is a fantastic song, absolutely fantastic. And there's a point in this song where it sounds so raw what Waters is singing. You could almost hear the voice, almost like on the point of a cry at that point. There's a lot of pain in this song that he's portraying, and it's even the break all of a sudden where it's you've got almost this not narrator per se, but it's almost like a guide that's going on. But
it's welcoming you and hey, look who else is here.
Yeah, it's cinematic. It definitely paints a picture with what it is, but this might be my favorite vocal performance from Roger Waters.
Is it because of the did they expect us to treat them with any respect line?
Yes.
Yeah. He just hits that right home.
Yeah.
Right out of the park.
There's a few feels on this album, but it is a fantastic album. If you have not had a chance to listen to The Final Cut, do yourself a favor. To me, it's probably one of my top 3 Pink Floyd albums of all time.
There are toys, and then there are freak-out-worthy toys. Toys that get big reactions like,
OMG, no way!
or,
Best present ever!
or,
It's what I've always wanted.
for those toys, you need Walmart. They've got exclusives from major brands like Disney, Barbie, and Adventure Force that you can't find anywhere else. Toys that make kids jump for joy.
Thank you, thank you!
And make you a hero for giving them. Shop hundreds of exclusive toys.
Yes!
Welcome to your Walmart.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. With over 122 million parts, you can make sure your number one ride or die stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
Ah yes, the magnificent Trolley Sour Bright Crawler, also known as Trollicus brightolus. The worm's captivating neon colour makes it an easy gummy prey.
Trolley!
It's a surprisingly sour, invitingly chewy, staggeringly snackable species unlike anything else found on this planet.
Eat me!
Delicious. Visit Trolley.com to shop now.
Trolley, eat me!
Momentary Lapse of Reason, released September 7th, 1987. Member change for sure. Roger Waters is now out, and Richard Wright came back as a session player. So the band is actually at this point really just Nick Mason and David Gilmour.
And a bunch of session players on the album.
Oh, yeah. But the album still hit number 1 in New Zealand, number 3 in the UK, and number 3 in the US. It's double platinum in Switzerland, triple platinum in Canada, quadruple platinum in the US, and platinum in France. There were 3 singles off of this one, both Learning to Fly and On the Turning Away, hit number 1 on the US mainstream rock charts. So now we get Floyd, I guess, 2.0 or maybe 3.0, because if you're taking a look at the Syd Barrett era, and then you've got, you know, the classic Pink Floyd era, and now you have the David Gilmour led era. Bit of a change from the final cut, but your thoughts on the album as a whole?
I like this album a lot. I think this is like the 4th or 5th album I had from them. So I was also still young and impressionable in 1986. And I remember when the Learning to Fly video hit MTV. Much music for you folks in the Great White North. I just always liked it. I think it was also one of those things like in my head, like it's Pink Floyd, so I automatically like it. Which, of course, you heard me speak about Ummagumma. So that's not the case. I can be objective, and I can tell you, I really like this album a lot. I liked some of how they remixed it in 2019 for the later years box set, but they wanted it to sound like more of a classic 70s Floyd record, but what they did was they took out all of the 80s electronics and synths and keyboards and stuff like that, and they took away drum triggers, and it just took away everything that makes this album what it is. And it's definitely a timestamp of the 80s, the cocaine-fueled 80s, but it's still a really good album.
Oh, fantastic album. But for your pick, what did you go with?
This is my second or third favorite. It's Us and Them ties with this. On the Turning Away, it should be the world anthem. I mean, it just screams, "We are your world anthem." Politics, money, just get together and love one another, and not even in a hippie kind of way, just in a just all this is meaningless. Live your life, be good to other people.
It's my pick as well. This is one of those songs that I wish I had seen live. I wish I had seen them. I know you did. Slightly jelly, very jelly. Not gonna lie.
I'm not trying to rub it in, but that was also a slot on the first leg of the tour that was rotating. So it wasn't always on the Turning Away. Sometimes it was Poles Apart. Sometimes it was Lost for Words. So, I just got lucky on June 11th, 1994.
But, dear listeners, it's not just David Gilmour's solo on this. And it's not just the vibe. The choir on this song. Like, we've talked about this before when we did the Madonna episode. A choir can bring so much and elevate a song from just, that's a nice song, to this is anthemic.
It is our world anthem, folks. Or at least should be. We should just think like that. It's kind of, I guess, you know how I'm always talking about Gin Asylum, how I'm like, just stop taking everything so seriously. Life happens once. I guess I guess my crazy point of view on Gin Asylum really stems from On the Turning Away. Like, just, we're going to die one day. Can we just be good to each other? Let the world just be one. Although, 80s, cocaine. Come on, people now. Smile on your brothers.
The Division Bell, released March 28th, 1994. The band at this point, David Gilmour, Richard Wright, Nick Mason. The album hit number one pretty much everywhere. It is 4 times platinum in Canada, 3 times platinum in the UK and the US, double platinum in Switzerland and France, and platinum in Australia, Austria, the Netherlands, and New Zealand. There were 4 singles off of this one. Keep Talking charted the highest, hitting number one on the US mainstream rock charts. And Marooned won the Best Rock Instrumental Performance at the 1995 Grammys. So off of arguably, quote unquote, their last album, what did you go with?
It's a really tough decision. I'm looking at it right now, and I still can't. I'm having trouble choosing, but I guess because I said Over, I know what I'm going to go with. But like, that intro to Coming Back to Life is so beautiful. But I'm going to go with Poles Apart, because that just, it's not that it feels like Floyd. The most Floydy feeling tunes on that album are Wearing the Inside Out and High Hopes, arguably. But Poles Apart, just, it does this thing where it kind of harkens back to like the Syd Barrett era with that little circus midsection. But it's a beautiful song. It's driving. The guitar work, it's David Gilmour. I love this song, man. Poles Apart. I bet you thought I was going to say High Hopes, didn't you?
Well, I mean, because I was going to say High Hopes, but you know, we can't always share the same song.
Fair. Well, that's why I chose Poles Apart anyway.
So let me paint a picture here, because I want to draw a parallel, and we got to mention them earlier. I look at the Division Bell kind of like the way I look at Queen's Innuendo. You know, the last proper studio release, and yes, Queen did release Made in Heaven, and yes, Pink Floyd did release The Endless River afterwards, but for all intents and purposes, the Division Bell and Innuendo are the last proper album releases from those bands. High Hopes is the last track on the Division Bell, and when it comes to Innuendo, oh my God, Show Must Go On, the last track on the last proper Queen album. Both almost feel like the absolute perfect curtain call to a career. High Hopes is one of the most, to me personally, one of the most epic Pink Floyd songs, period. And that's with a career that had Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall and the final cut. Queen, and I'm looking forward to one day doing a Queen episode, but I'm telling you right now, it's probably going to end up being The Show Must Go On. Because there's
the title track and the Steve Howe stuff on that is pretty good stuff.
Yeah. But I will say,
Show Must Go On, that was gorgeous.
Yeah.
What a perfect ending, yeah.
If you ever wanted to put an absolute perfect bow on a band's legacy, High Hopes and The Show Must Go On, what better way to sum everything up, to sum basically the career of Pink Floyd in that moment?
That's a fair assessment. I think it's just, I've heard the song so many times, and I've heard all these songs a million times. I'm not lambasting it for that. It's just that I love the song. Everybody does. And the way, I almost said the picture you paint. Oh, no, that's right. I almost said the paint you picture. Anyway, the picture you paint of kind of like how it fades out and then just the bells. You're right. And then Charlie hangs up on David Gilmour at the end. You got a post-credit stinger on that one. Great description, man. Very great description. Doesn't sway my answer, although all of a sudden I'm thinking the time that you gave me for this is going to go under, not over.
That's okay. That's okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'll lose money because I was going to pick the over anyways, but still.
Fair.
But 20 years later, we got the release of The Endless River, released November 10th, 2014. This album was released posthumously when it comes to Richard Wright, because he passed away in 2008. It hit number 1 in multiple countries, but only hit number 3 on the Billboard 200. It is double platinum in France, platinum in the UK, Australia, Germany, Canada, and New Zealand. There was only one single off this one, the one song with words, Louder Than Words, because most of this is all instrumental outtakes from the Division Bell and those recording sessions. So when this album came out, like, A, we weren't expecting Pink Floyd to ever release anything else ever. Your thoughts when this came out?
I was kind of psyched because I had a bootleg of those jams. So the song that Autumn 68 breaks up was just one jam. They put Autumn 68 in there just to kind of break it up, which is pretty cool. It's the Run Like Hell kind of sounding tune. Then there was a trailer on YouTube that was 30 seconds long from the intro track. That beep, and I was kind of like, ooh, interesting. And then Louder Than Words came out, and the word diss starts the second line. I'm like, did I just hear the word diss in a Pink Floyd song? I like that song. But yeah, I was kind of like, wait, another Floyd album. I have most of this stuff, most of it, not all of it. Yeah, I want to hear this. I'm psyched. And then I hear it's mostly instrumental. I'm like, oh, so's Adam Hart Mother. Like, I don't care. And then I heard it. And I think it's a nice little epilogue to the Division Bell.
Now, we've talked about your keyboard playing as well as part of the one and only
Slippery When Wet, New Jersey, from New Jersey, rocking for you wherever you're seeing us.
So going into this album, as a keyboardist, did you take this album differently from other Floyd albums?
No, I kind of knew what I was getting into because it's all this stuff that Richard Wright had already recorded. Even Autumn 68, coming from Autumn 1968. So I kind of knew what I was getting into, and it's nice to hear some of that stuff. And even that remix of A Momentary Lapse of Reason I talked about before, some of the stuff that was done on like 80s sounding keyboards, he had also done on organ. So they were just replacing things. So it was nice to hear some new Richard Wright and Gilmour jams coming together.
So off of this track of mostly instrumentals, what did you go with?
I went with Anacina. It's got that us and them kind of vibe, that little boom, 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 boom. It's C, F, F, G, C, boom, boom. And it does kind of the same bass line, just a step lower as us and them does, boom. And it's just this beautiful little piece.
For me, I'm going to go with It's What We Do, which was the middle track on what's quote-unquote side one. David Gilmour soloing on this. Like, I know that the album feels kind of like a tribute to Richard Wright, and rightfully so. No pun intended.
I see what you did there.
But freaking David Gilmour solos.
Yeah.
And again, dear guitarists, you don't need to play all the notes. Just play the ones that matter the most and make them sing. Because this one felt like it should have been on the Division Bell.
Well, I think a lot of them do because they were written at the same time. But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about with It's What We Do. And that guitar playing, there's very few guitar players that shred and play all of the notes that do it properly in a Gilmourish fashion. Steve Lukather comes to mind. John Petrucci comes to mind. But they wouldn't do those things if they didn't have that initial David Gilmour inspiration. Mostly Petrucci, not Lukather as much. But wow. I'm not going to change my answer, but that's a really solid choice. And once again, Gilmour guitar solos. He's got a new album out too, so that's even more David Gilmour guitar solos for you to just digest and just get sucked into. Wear headphones and listen to Floyd. Listen to Gilmour solo stuff. Listen to Amused to Death by Roger Waters.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that album because I freaking love Amused to Death.
That's my favorite album of all time, tied with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Those are some good picks. Those are some really solid picks. But now that we've come to the end of our Pink Floyd journey, so Jean, you know what to do next. remind our listeners what tracks you picked. And if there can only be one Pink Floyd song from the ones that you have picked, what's it going to be?
Well, from The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, I went with Astronomy Domini. From A Saucer Full of Secrets, I went with Corporal Clegg. From the album More, I went with Cymbeline. From Ummagumma, I went with several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grooving with a peak. From Adam Hart Mother, I went with Summer 68. From Metal, not metal like metal, just like metal, like you're meddling in my get out. From Metal, I went with Echoes. From Obscured by Clouds, I went with What's the Deal. From The Dark Side of the Moon, that's the one with the triangle with the lines that like the crayon stuffs, I went with Us and Them. From Wish You Were Here, I went with Shine On You Crazy Diamond, parts 6 through 9, because I could not choose the whole thing because it's split up, but whatever. From Animals, I went with Sheep. From The Wall, I went with The Trial. From The Final Cut, I went with The Final Cut. From A Momentary Lapse of Reason, I went with On the Turning Away. From The Division Bell, I went with Poles Apart. And from The Endless River, I went with Anesina. And if I were to choose just one, I'm getting into like this 1920s radio, like the Shadow kind of thing going on here. If I were to choose only one song from this list, it's tough, but it's really not. It's Echoes. Did you think I was going to say something else, brother?
At 23 and a half minutes, I figured that was going to be your pick.
It's not just because I like long songs. It's just because it's a wonderfully crafted tune.
And remember, dear listeners, that if you go to our website, notthatbadcast.com, and you go to the episode page for this show, you will see the Spotify playlist made by both Sean and I. So please have a listen to the songs, and then be sure to let us know in those comments what songs would have made your list. And now that I've stalled enough, here we go. The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, I went with Lucifer Sam. From A Saucer Full of Secrets, I went with Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. Off of More, I went with Cymbeline. From Ummagumma, I went with Grantchester Meadows. From Adam Hart Mother, I went with If. From Metal, I went with One of These Days. From Obscured by Clouds, I went with Childhood's End. Not the Kiss song, the Pink Floyd song. From The Dark Side of the Moon, I went with Time. From Wish You Were Here, I went with Shine On You Crazy Diamonds, but parts 1 through 5. From Animals, I went with Pigs, 3 different ones. From The Wall, I went with Hey You. From The Final Cut, I went with the Fletcher Memorial Home. From A Momentary Lapse of Reason, I went with On the Turning Away. From The Division Bell, I went with High Hopes. And from The Endless River, I went with It's What We Do. And holy crap, this is a hard pick.
That's because you didn't choose Echoes, or else it would have been easy.
Well, I mean, you take a look at that 3-album stretch from The Final Cut to The Division Bell, Fletcher Memorial Home, On the Turning Away, and High Hopes. Those are all 3 fantastic songs, but I'm going to go with the curtain call. I'm going to go with High Hopes, just because if ever a band is going to leave a lasting impression with one last song on one last album, even though we got The Endless River, High Hopes is the way to go. Fantastic song. Sean, thank you so much for going down this journey with me. Now, please remind our listeners where they can find you out there on the interwebs and what you're up to these days.
Well, these days, I am playing keyboards in Slippery When Wet, New Jersey, the nation's longest-running tribute to Bon Jovi, especially the early years. But, of course, I'm still writing and recording, doing my live solo thing. You can find me at Sean Faust on the Twitter, or whatever it's called. Sean Faust Music in most places. But just find me, listen to some tunes, buy the song Gin Asylum. 1 million sales, 10 million streams. Is that too much to ask for? No, it's not, because you want to help me help animals. And if you don't want to help me help animals, go and find your local no-kill shelter and donate something to them, whether it's food or money. And you know what? Just buy Gin Asylum anyway, because you're going to still help that good cause. I'm Sean Faust.
Sean, thank you so much. And yes, we are going to get you back on the show as soon as possible. It will not be as long a wait as last time, because we miss you over here.
I'm looking forward to it. I have an idea of what we're going to do next. Listen, all y'all. It's not that word, and it's not the Beastie Boys either.
All right, dear listeners, you guys know the drill. If there's an artist that you want us to cover on There Can Only Be One, or an album that you want us to cover on Spin Shuffle Skip, hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out that movie show we've been talking about today, It's Not That Bad. Until next time, he's Sean, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is There Can Only Be One, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.
The Jeremiah Show is proudly featured on Pantheon Podcasts. Don't miss an exciting episode of The Jeremiah Show. You're invited to the world of pop culture, music icons, and food gods. Find Jeremiah at thejeremiahshow.com or on all social networks and back catalogs at Linktree, Jeremiah D. Higgins.
I am Miles Zuniga from Fastball.
And we are a girl named Tom.
Hi, I'm Marielle Hemingway.
Hi, this is Chef Melissa King from Top Chef All Stars.
Hi there, everybody. This is Ann H.
Hi, I'm Shadow Stevens. I'm having a great time on The Jeremiah Show, the greatest show in the history of the world.
The Jeremiah Show is brought to you by Evolve Entertainment Network, Pantheon Podcasts, and Radio Candy Media.
I do hope you enjoyed that interview. I'm sorry that Jeremiah is so hopeless. I did made a real effort to sort of get through the sludge and the drudgery and the cliches and the second-rate ideas. I hope I didn't disappoint you too much. And as far as Jeremiah is concerned, do write in, because if you do, we can do something about this.